Yes, ma'am. Noted.
Need to be on the record.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the March 28th, 2023 Planning Board meeting to order. At the moment, Board Member Greg Baber is not present yet, so we will go ahead and get started without him. First order of business, so we need to consider actually waiting for Greg Baber. How about that? Greg, I just gave you an introduction on the live stream, so no pressure, but welcome.
We've got the red carpet.
And again, what we're going to do is, as a first order of business, is consider the approval of February 28, 2023's regular meeting minutes. I do want to point out, in case you're unaware, there were two amendments to the minutes. First, the motion that was made on R22-01 for Birkdale Village, it was Stephen Swanek that seconded the motion. I believe the original minutes reference Greg Baber. And then the second adjustment to it was actually just a clarification of one of my comments about the current office space that is available in Huntersville right now versus what we were talking about. Other than that, the meeting minutes are as stands. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as amended.
All right. Second. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on those changes or the minutes themselves? None? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Abstain. So we have 8-4 and 1 abstention. And just for the records, because you weren't here. So, I understand. I didn't want the 4 people that are watching out there to wonder what was so objectionable about what's in here. Okay. Next up, public comments. Actually, the 2 folks signed up to speak are actually the applicants, and so we will have them up when we get to item 4A. So we will move on to the action agenda. I believe my vice chair actually has a question for legal.
It's a procedural question. Jacob, since this is a quasi-judicial petition, what can the town board, just to remind us and to remind the public, what can the town board consider from this hearing?
So they can only consider what is heard at their public hearing that will be held. They will see, I believe, your actual decision, and the minutes will be, I think, included in the packet, so they will see that. But they won't, if they're listening tonight, they won't be able to, that won't be able to be considered.
Well, they shouldn't be listening. Get off.
Yes. So does that answer your question? Or
Well, I just want to make sure, because I always remember the mayor, and I forget the exact wording, and I apologize for not calling you before this, but the mayor always mentions, that when they say what we consider, there's some part of the motion that they can consider, and I forget what that is, and I was trying to clarify that.
I know that they receive what your decision is, but
So our motion will be in the staff report? Okay,
which is given to the board, yes.
and I'm good. Thank you, Jacob.
Okay, thank you. First item on the agenda is 4A, consider recommendation for Charter Caldwell Station subdivision sketch plan. It's a request by Charter Properties to subdivide what looks to be 5.51 acres located at 17223 Old Statesville Road. And that's for a 39-unit rental townhome development across 4 existing parcels. Mr. Pete.
Thank you, Chairman Snai. I want to enter the staff report into the record. I'll go through a brief description of the request and then try to answer any questions you have, and the applicants are here as well. This is just a quick aerial photo showing you the properties as they exist today. You can see that there are 3 single-family homes on the property, and then 1 is vacant, and they align all of them to front on 115. This is the zoning map. It's a SNP, and I do want to point out that there was one typo in your report. The zoning is in R, not, I believe it said neighborhood commercial, so that was a mistake. But you can see in the back the T&D-O. That is part of the Caldwell Station, the entire Caldwell Station development. It was approved in 1998, and the apartments that are mostly complete just to the north of this particular petition, as well as immediately to the west, and we're going to elaborate on that in just a minute, but all of that was part of the original Caldwell Station, and those apartments represented less than 30% or less of the detached homes in the larger part, and I'll circle back as to why that is a significant piece of information. But you can see across the street where the future transit stop would be located, sort of straddling the recently rezoned T&D-U project, and then there is some corporate business there in the gray. This is just a little context map, starting with that eastern side of the map. You can see the project that I just referenced, which is a T&D project that is a mix of multifamily as well as some commercial as well. And then you can see underneath the label of T&D-O, that is the northern part of the Caldwell Station apartments. That is mostly completed today. And then behind, you can see a site plan of the phase 2 of Caldwell Station apartments, which I'll show you a little bit closer in just a few moments. And then you can see the proposal that we're working on tonight in the red. So just a super quick bullet list here is, as you've already mentioned, Mr. Chairman, it's a little over 5 acres. It's neighborhood residential, 39 townhomes. You're looking at a density of 7, just a little over 7. And then there's a real quick breakdown of parking. So they are providing via the garage, via their pad, and the on-street parking. It's pretty good for multifamily, which is something that we look for. So here's the site plan, and it is the white portion on the right side of the image. The gray portion represents phase 2 of the Caldwell Station apartments. Now, there is a sketch plan that has been approved for those apartments, but the very same applicants that are bringing this townhome petition to you tonight are the owners of that second phase. And they are looking to make some minor adjustments that staff will review. It's nothing that will need a planning board action. But those tweaks to that approved sketch plan are critical to making this townhome project work. And I'll make a reference to that when we get down to recommendation. But just, it's very important, and if you have any questions about that, we can talk about how they tie together. And they are, you can kind of view them as one. But just to be clear, these particular townhomes are not part of Caldwell Station that was approved in 1998, okay? So moving forward, this is just some of the site data. I just kind of blew it up in case anybody had any questions. I don't really intend to dive into it unless there are questions about it. We can go over any of those elements, or I can flip back in just a minute if you'd like to. Again, this is the a little bit larger image, and you can see in the red, that is the part that is going to be staff reviewed. And our contention is that if you are so inclined to recommend an approval of some type for the townhomes in the gray, that would be conditioned upon the staff review and approval of the changes to the area in red. Now, those are still apartments. They are, no changes in terms of the intent of the original Caldwell Station project. The long-range plans on this, you can see the approximate location. This is in the 2040 plan identified as town core, which is our most intense. The density is encouraged. And the one thing that I wanted to mention is if you look in the image on the top of the screen, the large brown circle is an activity center. And then this is also an area where you can see the red line, which is the future transit, commuter rail that is still part of our long-range planning. And the northern station would be almost immediately across the street from this project. The importance on that is that it allows for 100% attached. So that is why you see this townhome development, not part of Caldwell Station, but showing 100% attached units. And it's because it's within that walking distance, the catchment area that we allow through the ordinance. Oh, and I think I did not point out, at the bottom of the screen, you can see the various 2040 policy references. And we can go over those if you'd like to, but they are fairly standard with relation to housing mix, street accommodation, sidewalks, pedestrian, et cetera. And again, not giving them short shrift, but again, I won't belabor that unless you'd like to know. In the middle of the project, there is an urban open space. There's a plaza there. There's some tree protection, 3 very large trees there in the middle. And then there are some other plantings. There'll be some seating areas, some different surface materials. You can see that the street that ends here, we are not drawing right now. Excuse the technical issues, but talk amongst yourselves. Well, you can see the street on the left in this area right here. And that street, in a typical sense, would continue all the way to 115. However, DOT, in light of the other connections that are offered up, did not want to see a third connection in this small stretch. So what the project has done is created a pedestrian passageway there that moves through their open space. It's a wide sidewalk that will give the residents an opportunity. And if you project into the future, when there is rail, it would be an opportunity for all of these residents, even in the back, to be able to move forward, move up 115 and cross at wherever the appropriate place would be to do that. A valuable addition to the project for all of the residents. This is just a real quick report by CMS. You can see the capacity on the right-hand side. You can see the recommendation at the bottom. I've highlighted that the project, again, just due to the way that the CMS formulas work, they're projecting approximately 7 students. These are some quick elevations, and I only highlighted the ones on 115. All of the elevations are in your packet, but this is buildings 5 and 6, which would be the southern part facing 115, And then Building 1 would be the northern part facing 115. So that kind of shows you and there are some slight variations in the materials of the roof line. One's got a bit more of a porch and one's more of a stoop. So with all of that said, and again, I realize that was a quick summary, and I'm happy to go back over any of it. But you can see that we find the application is complete. We have looked at the applicable requirements, and we find that we could recommend approval, subject to, as I mentioned, the administrative amendment of Caldwell Station Apartments Phase 2, which is under review as we speak. We would also, and I'm sorry, I failed to mention that there was a block length modification on 115. And that was solved, in our opinion, well, first off, you have DOT not allowing it. So that's, tough nut to crack right there. But the pedestrian passageway coming through is essentially subbing for the street connection. And so in our opinion, that is helping to mitigate that issue. And so we are supportive of the block break. But you see that we do show a limit of 775 feet on that. The townhome elevations that are the comment here, the third bullet, that actually referenced the original elevations. I think that they are working on some adjustments to that, and they can speak to that when we come up. The willingness to serve letter from Charlotte Water, that was provided, as I mentioned in the staff report. This whole thing came in April of last year. And so some of the material that came in with it is kind of out of date. And so they're having a new letter issued, and they could speak to that as well. There is a note that needs to be added regarding the storm system. It's actually going to move the stormwater back into Caldwell Station Phase 2 apartments in their BMP, and that is workable by our engineers. It just needs to be noted that that's going to happen so that they work together. And then the last three bullets are really just our catch-alls. That is that transportation, water quality, and all the other red lines, miscellaneous notes would be addressed prior to. So again, our recommendation is conditioned upon those elements. We would be supportive. Does the planning board have any questions of the presentation or of the project? And I'll answer first before the applicants come forward.
I've got just some real quick, simple ones. I'm assuming this was submitted prior to the text amendment to TOD. Is that why we're,
That's correct.
okay. Right. And so it would fall under the sketch plan process.
Right, we're doing quasi-judicial. Right, so there'll be a hearing in April before the town board.
Okay, that's all.
Any other questions for staff? No, it was an error.
Yes,
He was referencing, there's a typo at the bottom for
yes,
Brighton.
yes. That was a typo. I did not mean to put that in there.
I tried to cover that up a little better, but
Brighton is a very far-reaching project,
yes.
but it does
It
not.
really is. It really is. Mr. Pete, I do have one question, and it regards the block length modification. So even though NCDOT would not approve that, we still have to include that in the notes as a technicality that it's addressed and allowed. Or they wouldn't allow, NCDOT, I'll correct what I said, would not allow a third connection in that span, which thus, in essence, kind of forces the block length expansion. Correct?
I mean, that's where I'm going with it, or in terms of what we're saying is the block length standard is there, and the applicant does not have the ability, in the traditional sense, to comply and break that block down.
Gotcha.
And so, no, DOT is not specifically saying we're not going to allow the block length issue to be satisfied,
Okay.
but they're eliminating the applicant's opportunities to do it. So we tried to get as creative as we could to simulate a public pedestrian connection that's going to walk and talk like a small street.
Perfect.
And make that connection.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Would the applicant like to come up? Do you guys have a presentation, anything to say? If you don't, no pressure.
No, I
No.
don't have much to say. Thank you, David, for that. We've worked really hard with staff over the last 10 months to be.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have you come up then. If you could just do name and address for the public record, and you can give that summary, and that's fine.
Eric Williams, Charter Properties, 1520 South Boulevard in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't have much to add. We've worked very hard with staff over the last 10 months or so to comply with all requests from staff, and I think we've done that. And so I really will just open up for any questions that you might have on our project.
Sure, okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
One question, actually a couple, with regard to the trash. I assume this is going to be a town collection and all that's been worked out. That traffic circle looks pretty tight. I don't know if you call it a traffic circle, it's more like a cul-de-sac there at the end of that. And then the T road alleyway, I assume your trash cans will be back there. That's all been worked through. That's probably more for David.
Our Public Works Department has reviewed the alleyways. They will be private alleys, but they are designed for collection.
All right, sounds good. And then the other one, so the amenities here will be used by the entire development and vice versa? They will use like the pool at the apartments and all that stuff?
That is correct. This is really typical of projects that we've done recently, in which we have 20 to 30% of townhomes, which typically are three-bedroom product, but they integrate in with the entire project, and it's been very successful. And our tenants in these love having a enhanced amenity package that they don't get in many other build-to-rent townhome locations. So it's been very positive and well-received.
Perfect. And I do have a question. So you're obviously aware of the list of site plan, I guess, issues, if you will. Are there any that you have any angst about, concern, don't agree with, anything along those lines?
No, we do not. I will tell you that our will serve letter from Charlotte Water has already been addressed, and we provided that to staff. So that has been updated. We've already talked with staff about some of the townhome elevation concerns, and we're already working with our design team on addressing some of those, and we'll continue to do that as part of the process moving forward. I think David has addressed the block length. The others I would view as connected with the administrative review of the larger project, and we'll deal with those when we continue through that process. But nothing up there gives us any pause at all, and we'll continue to work with staff on whatever concerns are remaining.
Okay, all right, thank you. If there's no other questions of the applicant, I'll gladly accept a motion.
I have a motion. But before I read it, David, question. There is no commuter train, right?
Currently
Based on your
today,
slide, there is no commuter train. Based on the slide that you gave. And to reiterate what Jay said, because I think he covered it, was that the only reason the applicant, because the town removed that quarter-mile unlimited density allowance around the proposed transit rail stations, about a year ago.
Yeah, it's
Right, but because this was applied for before that was approved, as Jay pointed out, this is going forward as a quasi-judicial in the O mode. But there is no commuter train. I'd just like to clarify that. I have a problem with the commuter train. All right, motion for Charter Caldwell Station subdivision sketch plan. And considering the Charter Caldwell Station subdivision sketch plan, the planning board finds the application is complete. The Charter Caldwell Station subdivision sketch plan is consistent with adopted public plans and policies and complies with all applicable requirements of the zoning ordinance and the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan as stated within the findings of facts in parts 2 through 4 of the staff report. The proposed Charter Caldwell Station subdivision lies completely within the 2040 Community Plan Town Core Future Land Use Character Area and is supported by policies EOS 8.3, EOS 10, LU 2.1, LU 5.3, LU 7.1, LU 8.3, LU 9.1, LU 10.1, T 5.1. The Planning Board recommends approval of the Charter Caldwell Station subdivision sketch plan and the requested block length modification for the North Carolina 115 block not to exceed 775 feet. The recommendations for approval are contingent upon the applicant working with staff to resolve the administrative amendment to Caldwell Station Apartments. Phase 2 must be approved in order for the subdivision to be approved. Townhome elevations are too similar, provide greater variation between building elevations for review. Add a note regarding storm system bypass through Caldwell Station Apartments, Phase 2 required for Charter Caldwell townhomes. Town transportation comments must be addressed. Water quality concept plan must be approved by staff and address any remaining red line comments with the staff. End. Did I miss anything, David?
You did state that the application was complete.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
right up front.
There you go.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. As far as our action agenda, that was the only item. We do have a couple things in other business. Oh, yeah. Guys, if you'd like, you can, you don't have to hang out for the whole thing. It's not that entertaining. All right, so in other business, like I was saying, we have two things. The first one is going to be an overview and an update on the mobility plan.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Heather Maloney. I'm the transportation planner here for the town. This is my first chance to present to you all, so thank you for having me. The mobility plan got underway this past January with a contract with AECOM, and I just wanted to give you an update of what we're up to and where we're going with that. So this mobility plan is born out of some of the recommendations of the 2040 plan from a couple years ago, where it was recommended that we develop a mobility plan that builds upon the recommendations presented in that plan, creating a connectivity master plan that identifies the vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle, and transit connections, as well as a street design guideline and standards. And the bottom of that blue page, pulled from the 2040 plan, says that the mobility plan should identify specific strategies that consider stated community priorities related to quality of life, green spaces, environmental safety, economic development, and travel choice and active living. So to that end, we have been working with our consultants as well as a technical committee that's formed out of representatives from the Division 10 of NCDOT, representatives from the state DOT, IMD, which is the Integrated Mobility Division that works with bike, ped, and transit plans, as well as representatives from our engineering department, Public Works, and CRTPO members. And with their input and our own planning department's input, we've developed the following vision statement, and that is to have a transportation network that integrates land uses and offers choices to safely connect pedestrians, bicyclists, transit and roadway users to the community and meets the needs for all users. Our goal is to create a safe and accessible mobility choices for all, and we're going to do that by creating an online GIS database that incorporates all of our previous regional, state, and local transportation plans and updates them to modern standards. And then we're going to use the GIS database to help prioritize those projects and identify funding and partnerships to get those projects implemented. So that's kind of the first steps that we've been taking in the past few months. The direction that we want to take from here is to work with, again, our engineering department, public works, as well as our technical committee to refine some of the preliminary cross-sections that were developed as part of the 2040 plan, refine those to be context-specific across the various planning districts in our town, represented in that map from the 2040 plan, with the community core in orange, the transitional zone in yellow, and then the rural districts. So we are in the midst of developing more detailed cross-sections that then we'll have reviewed with our technical committee, and then have those put into a GIS database that ultimately we'd like to have mirror what we've seen the city of Charlotte do, and have an online GIS database where anyone in town or wherever can look at the map, click on a road segment or greenway segment, and know exactly what type of projects we have planned, what types of cross-sections we have planned for each of our roadways. As many of you may know, the major roads in Huntersville are maintained by NCDOT, so working with them, with our technical committee, will help streamline our plan review process in setting setbacks in order to allow for roadway expansions and the incorporation of wide side paths and bike lanes and that type of infrastructure moving forward. So here's just a broad schedule for our project. Like I said, we got under contract in January with a kickoff meeting with our technical committee. Last month, we started working on our existing conditions analysis, kind of a gap analysis of our network for roadways, bikeways, greenways, et cetera. And we are about to embark on our community engagement. We have a public survey scheduled to be released in early April, run from April 3rd to April 21st. So please look for that as we release it through our social media channels and our website. We're also going to work with town board and you as well to hopefully push that out to all your contacts, working with HOAs, some of the business parks, as well as senior centers and congregate care housing to try to identify and engage people that may be more transit reliant to get their opinions of mobility issues in town. We're also working with CATS in coordination with their current microtransit study that's underway to identify how we can make that, improve our transit service here in Huntersville. And then moving forward, we'll refine those cross-sections, develop policies, and have a report hopefully by the end of the year. So that's the mobility plan in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you, and nice to meet you. Welcome. Talking about the GIS layer, the GIS information, is there any plan to do more of like a app or some kind of more public facing? I get the GIS, but oftentimes people don't understand to go to GIS to see where the connectivity may be versus, you know, if you could pull up an app and say, wow, I could get on my bike here and ride through here. Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely something that can come out of this. Getting the GIS layer established is kind of the first step, and then we can take it from there. And the capabilities in that regard are, you know, getting better every day. But we don't necessarily have that in the budget per se, but it's certainly something that we can have as a recommendation and look forward to doing, yeah. I think that was a recommendation from the bike plan a few years ago too, was to have, in particular, a bike map so people can look and.
And I'll show my ignorance. Google Maps, does Google Maps actually have a walking? And I wonder, and then how do you, I guess, do you ever communicate with Google to make sure that it's up to date? Like,
So I had to use that particular service for transit when I went out to San Francisco the last couple of weeks, and it's really easy to switch it around so that you get walking directions or bike or transit.
Because you have to communicate with Google that, you know, you have these options available, and there's map makers out there that will draw the lines on top of our greenways and connections and all that stuff.
And when our data's up to date, which it is pretty up to date, but getting it all in a single layer, sharing that with Google is pretty easy. Everyone uses, you know, similar file types.
Yep.
Hello.
Hey.
Sounds good. Question, is the Greenway Trails and Bikeway Commission involved in this in any way?
Not directly, although I've been, I attend their meetings, so I've been keeping them up to date.
Okay. And you probably said it, and it went over my head. Who is the user here? Who are we're putting all this good information together, but who is using it?
Sure. As in the GIS data or the mobility plan once it's
mobility
finalized?
plans, yes.
It's really kind of a technical project. I feel like this just turned on and got loud. It's really a technical project for us to kind of synthesize all of our previous plans and get them up to date. And then the outward-facing map that we already have that on our website that has all of our transportation plans and development projects. So there is that public-facing part, but this is really our, like an internal project, a technical project that we will use as our map moving forward, both to reference cross-sections for each roads and also to identify projects and priority projects that we'd like to pursue funding for.
All right, embedded within the GIS.
Yeah, and a formal report as well.
Okay.
So I know Jack's wanted to
Yes,
say something.
it affects anybody who does a project anywhere in Huntersville. Jay did a project on Gilead Road. There was a lot of back and forth. Okay, what's the right-of-way width that DOT wants? Every single project that fronts one of these thoroughfares, we're going to be aiming to get the cross-section. So it's not a guessing game and you're not chasing after NCDOT or trying to get two plans, the bikeway plan that's not speaking to the roadway plan. So I don't want you to leave to think that, you know, we're spending this money and we have this great technical document. This is going to be used for every project that's out there along the thoroughfare. Hope that explains it better.
I might just add that it's kind of our blueprint moving forward for getting funding. Other towns that have done mobility plans, I see them at the CRTPO meetings applying for funding for roadway projects and greenway projects, and they're working down their priority list of projects that they've identified through a similar exercise. And those priority projects will be informed by the public input to help kind of shape the criteria by which we identify those priority projects.
I was just wondering, is the potential future east-west connector part of the, I was actually joking for my, we had too much discussion on that. It was an inside joke, but you do have an answer for it. It is part of the plan?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm rubbing off on you, apparently. God, I'll have to tone it down myself then. Any other questions on the mobility plan? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You know, given the last one and how intense that was, whatever, it's fine for this one. Next on other business, another discussion. This one, Planning Board member Jay Henson brought up, and actually, Jay, do you want to just introduce this?
I'll run with it.
You're gonna.
Jay and I have had some good discussions.
Okay.
Sure. Really, approximately about 1 year ago, the town board, through text amendment 2202, eliminated 100% attached units within a quarter mile of all the identified transit stops in town. We heard about that a little earlier, so you can see some of these projects still working through that life cycle. As part of the 2040 community plan, we aim to look at increasing variety of housing stocks and those types of things, but through that text amendment, it really eliminated in some certain areas different housing types, leaving it pretty much a single family or duplexes. But you can see here on this chart, If you look at things like townhomes, duplexes, and triplexes, they're encouraged in our town core and downtown areas. Of course, you can see here's a list of our zoning maps. Primarily what Jay and I have been discussing is the town center area, which you can see there in red. Part of the 2040 plan encourages future development downtown and to provide a mixture of and variety of housing types, including attached units. There's some other additional land use policies that support attached units in certain areas of town, especially the areas that we're aiming for a higher level of density. You can see down here's our downtown plan. We've got the activity ring out there in the dashed line, and you can see all the land that is red in color. That's zone town center. And so what Jay and I were discussing is, when do we want to look at creating a text amendment to reintroduce a townhome, duplex, triplex style homes in our downtown area? Here's an example in Franklin, Tennessee, where you have got homes that are fronting public streets as well as alternative areas. You can see in the core there, those homes are fronting upon a public open space. Looks like to be a plaza, what we describe as a plaza. You've got other areas, and also in Franklin, Tennessee, and Alpharetta, Georgia, where you're seeing these products introduced very successfully. These are hitting, they're providing a different type of lifestyle for folks. Not everybody wants to live in a single-family home, especially in these downtown settings. So what we wanted to do tonight is just discuss, is this something the planning board may want to sponsor, or for us to do additional research and continue on, or is this, we just want to wait for another time to bring this back up? So that's kind of what we're here to do this evening. Jay, you got anything else to add?
No, that was great, Brian.
Actually, let me say this. Since that text amendment's was approved, last year, I've had a number of developers reach out to me almost on a weekly basis. Hey, where do you guys allow 100% attached townhomes? Answer is simply, we don't. You would have to, rezone to TND to allow something like that. And then with the TND, there's a number of other parameters that come in place. So you couldn't just come in downtown and build a townhome subdivision. Okay.
No, that was perfect. And like Brian said, we've had people ask us, like, hey, we'd like to do some infill townhomes, in different areas. And, the answer is it's nearly impossible based on the zoning ordinance. And, if you look at the, like Brian had mentioned, the 2040 plan, and actually the downtown master plan, it actually, lists attached homes, single-family homes as a, an item that they would like to see with incorporated into that. Having that infill. I'm also on the mayor's committee for affordable housing that was recently established, and that was another item discussed is, and it's not, when I say affordable housing with this, there's so many different things you can do with the townhomes. I mean, some of these on here are probably $1 to $2 million homes. You can also get someone on the other end. So there's a wide range of prices that could give people an alternative. And if it's done in the right spot, the right way with the right parameters, I thought it'd be a great thing for us to discuss to see if it's worth pursuing, if it's worth saying, yeah, we can do it here, there, or size limit, whatever the planning board. I think it'd be a great time for us to do something as a board that would, looking forward and rather than reacting to something, we can actually discuss something and see if we have something that we'd like to pursue. I'd like to get your all's thoughts.
I'd like to chime in, but I also have a question for Brian first. So our ordinance now allows, one building, one lot? But that building could be a 50-unit apartment complex. So what we've created with our ordinance now is a perverse incentive where most people will fight tooth and nail against apartments, but, it's okay if someone's living there. Well, our ordinance is encouraging the opposite of that. So I think Jay's right on here. It would encourage more of that home ownership, that true infill where you can drop in a few units. But I think it would have to be very creatively structured to make sure that it doesn't become a 100-unit townhome, that it keeps limited to that true infill. Now, is that number 5 units, 10 units, 20 units? That's for experts to weigh in on. But I think directionally, this would be huge and allow, once again, we could build townhouses in place right now where it's going to be apartments or nothing.
And that's kind of where this conversation with Jay and I went, did we come up with some ideas? Did we say 25? Did we say, you can pick this anyway? We said, you know what, let's just have a discussion and see what organically comes out of this. We didn't want to put an idea in front of you and have you analyze it. We're just going to have a good discussion, healthy debate, and figure out, where do we as a group decide, this should go, or does it go?
The picture that's up right now, Franklin, Tennessee, the buildings that are there, what type of building is that?
Those are attached, those are townhomes. We would consider those townhomes in our.
Townhomes?
Yep.
So they could be almost the size of apartments.
Yeah, these are tall, these are 3-story infill product in Franklin, Tennessee, which is
Right. Not that I'm saying I'm opposed to any of that, but yeah, we just need to talk about it. But I guess the other question I have is, why do we currently not allow that type of?
So if you were to develop a subdivision in downtown Huntersville, in town center, currently you cap that at 30% attached. So if you built, 10 homes, only 3 of those could be attached. That's just our philosophy, how it's been since 1996.
Why?
I'm going to turn it over to the expert on that.
I've asked the attorney, I watch Peppa Pig with my grandkids, and George always asks the question, why?
Right, so basically up till last year, not only any major subdivision, so if what we're talking about is major subdivisions has a 30% cap, meaning if you're adding streets or have multiple buildings out there, that's going to fall in a major subdivision category. Remember, we also had up till last year a provision that said, and if you're within a quarter mile of a transit station, that you could have 100% attached. So that was dropped. So now it's just, if you're a major subdivision, it's 30% attached. And so that's kind of the evolution how it got here. And to be frankly, I think it served the town pretty well. Because I would dare say if we didn't have that 30% attached cap, it'd be a bunch of townhomes and not many single family. So it's served its purpose. It was started in 1996, so it's got some age to it. And a zoning ordinance is a living document, and you kind of modify it, just like we took out the 100% attached because transit's not coming anytime soon. But that raised this discussion. Well, if we're not allowing 100% attached in major subdivisions, might there be some flexibility for a townhome in a certain zoning district? And I'm not sure if you're talking, right now you're talking about town center. Now, do understand, an option is to rezone property to a TND, and TND allows 100% attached units. So that is another zoning district that already today allows 100% attached. The problem is you can't have little spots of TND that would be considered spot zoning. So it's got to be in the appropriate setting. So this is talking about possibly opening up not just the TND, but maybe town center and maybe limited for townhomes is the discussion here. If you had one building with 7 townhomes, you could do that today. It's when you have multiple buildings, which is what you would typically get. Does that help explain some things?
Yes, it does, Jack, and I think that I don't have a problem with the town moving forward, planning board moving, whoever, planning department moving forward with a discussion on, does there need to be a change in the way that we process this, that we allow this type of housing? But do you think, certainly it's a time for discussion, but I would ask this, based on what I heard Mr. Semino say a moment ago, the town controlled through the zoning ordinance, multifamily type housing versus single family to allow more single families. Have we reached a point to where we can let go of that and move away from single family into multifamily homes?
Yeah, that's ultimately.
Of course, that, maybe that would also be depending on the zoning district.
Correct, and that's like I said, we want to have this discussion, do we limit it just to town center? Do we go town center plus a quarter mile? Do we go town center plus a half mile? Do we introduce this into the neighborhood residential? Do you change the percent attached in neighborhood residential from 30 to 50%? There are definitely many avenues we could take this down, which is why instead of trying to create something and bring it in, we said, let's just have a discussion to see and get some ideas. Give us a direction to go before we start putting pen to paper and saying, all right, we're gonna up that from 30 to 40% or 45%.
The odds of this being voted on while I'm still a member of this board are extremely slim, so I'll just drop some thoughts. I think it should stay just town center. Expanding it to other zoning districts would make it way too big a petri dish for experimentation, so I think it should stay limited. And I think it would be good to look at what adjoining municipalities allow, where this is happening, where there is some. But I think the biggest focus would be, well, what is that number? Does that number exist in other municipalities? And then even just as a thought experiment, well, there's a finite amount of town center zoning. What lots are unbuilt upon? What would be targeted? I mean, is there an average lot size? Are most of them 2 acres, 5 acres? Are there 20-acre tracts somewhere around here that I can't recall? To really define, well, is this going to impact 10 parcels, 50 parcels? And then from there, it'll be a lot easier to, for lack of a better word, take a swing at something that may or may not make sense.
Great.
The only thing I would say there, Stephen, is that initially for the discussion, I would recommend not limiting discussion of other zoning districts until we decide, until the discussion got closer, because we might find that there is another zoning district that this might be applicable in.
Fair point.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around the whole concept. But on the surface, what I understand, that a small developer or a small project couldn't come in and put in 6 townhomes under the current ordinance. Is that right? It has to be part of a bigger.
It would be challenging to do something like that.
So on the surface, that sounds like a great thing to explore if someone couldn't do that. And when Stephen mentioned other municipalities, sometimes I get pieces of information and I don't know the whole story. But I think I read recently that Cornelius may be pushing away from townhomes in their town center. And when I heard that, I thought, not that we should do what another town does.
Sure.
But trying to understand the reasoning. When I heard that, I was like, that doesn't make townhomes to me, or brownstones or whatever, that's kind of a downtown feel to it, to me. So I was confused when I read that with Cornelius, but I would be curious what their reasoning is, if that is something, a direction they're going. I know a lot of the surrounding areas are trying to figure out a way to slow growth, but going back to the apartment versus townhome argument, I don't understand why you would allow an apartment but not townhomes. So on the surface, I think it's something more to explore.
I think that's the one thing that kind of really got my attention is, you can put this apartment building, in a lot of places, the one building, one lot. You can put the apartment building, in a lot of places in our zoning ordinance, that you could not do the townhomes. And the difference would be, with a 3-story apartment building, I would venture to say you would get more density with an apartment building than you would with, a townhome project. And, it becomes a major subdivision, which probably triggers other things in our ordinance for improvements, with streets and stuff like that with a townhome.
I would add one thing, is that I think it all depends on the piece of land you're talking about. And I'll give you an example. Across the street from St. Mark's Church, 1.03 acres, there's an 18-unit apartment building. It fits. How many townhomes are you going to get on 1.03 acres? That's not a massive apartment building. It fits in that 1 acre, and it made use of it, and it kind of, I live close to it. I don't have a problem with it.
The discussion is anti-apartment.
No, I didn't mean.
I think it's feeling like giving townhomes more opportunities, but it doesn't mean apartments shouldn't be allowed, or.
Jack,
I
you
just
had something to
wanted
add?
to mention that just last week, the town board approved increasing the setbacks for apartments when they get dense and they're next to single family as a way to protect the single family. So there's a number of things we're doing to try to, adjust the ordinance, for the times. We have not been overrun with apartments because I could build one building on one lot. I'm going to build a big one. We haven't seen a lot of that. We are starting to see discussion on it, and so now's the time to act. And so that's what we're doing. So, again, the key was just to try to get feedback. Is this something worthy of moving forward with? And what I think that's what heard.
What I would say I've been on record for years, both as a private citizen and a member of various boards, whatever, that when we are talking at least town center and a downtown, we have to encourage as much infill projects as possible and allow just as many different things because that's what I see everywhere else. And so I don't say that as, well, we have to copy them, but it's because I see it work everywhere else. So to have this discussion, I think, I've been on board with it for years, so having this is not a problem. What I think, we don't do this very often, but this is a casual discussion, maybe just a straw poll of, how many folks think this is a worthy endeavor for the board to take on?
To consider, yeah.
To consider, yeah. Okay.
Great. Appreciate it. We'll come up with some ideas and some concepts, and go ahead.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
But-
we'll come
so
up with
what's
ideas.
the-
Yeah, we're gonna go
where's the
study, yeah,
process?
we're gonna go study the whole southeast and see what people are doing. There's some really cool stuff out there. And if we want to keep, Huntersville, on the map, let's do some cool stuff. It's time. If we really want to be aggressive with downtown, we're getting ready to have the public hearing for the downtown plan, which you guys unanimously supported, which was great. Let's get us the tools to make these things happen. So.
I nominate Scott Hensley to sit on that committee.
Coming over to my back porch when we're done here. We'll come up with some good ideas.
All right, well, if nothing else on that, I'm happy with that result and looking forward to see what flushes out with this and further discussion with you guys on it as well. If there is nothing else, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a
Second.
There it is. Do we need to discuss? I don't think so. All those in favor? And there we go. There's none opposed. We're done.
Record setting,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
thank you.